Cool. All right, so welcome to Psych 204, the lab portion of the class. My name is Jeff. I'll be your lab instructor for this semester. I am a third year lifespan developmental PhD student, though I've been in grad school now this will be my fifth year because I got my master's before this at Shippensburg University, if anyone's ever heard of that in PA. Yeah, so even though I'm in the lifespan developmental, I specifically focus on, I study social media research. So I look at how social media impacts adolescent and young adult well-being. So I'll sprinkle some of my findings throughout the semester, just because I think they're interesting. And I think everyone is at least somewhat interested in social media. So it'll be a little bit of fun on my end. Um, Yeah, let's jump into it. Before I really begin, if anyone has taken Psych 203, not at WVU, so like they took it at another school, please let me know. Or you can let Dr. Tenenholtz know. We just want to make sure that the curriculum, you're caught up to date essentially. We've already had a student have to back out because their Psych 203 just didn't match up with ours. So yeah, so just let me know in an email. So today, cameras aren't required to be on. I do appreciate it though, if they're on. It just makes teaching a lot easier. But for the rest of the semester, I would like the cameras to be on just because it helps with participation. And it helps me see facial expressions to see if people are actually getting things or not, which is one of the things I miss about in person. All right, first off, can everyone see the PowerPoint? All right, cool. So here's my contact information. These are my office hours. I hold a lot of office hours. Please stop in if you have any questions about assignments, feedback I give, or the class. Yeah, I'll be there on Zoom. You can access the Zoom link through eCampus, but I'll also send it out in an email every week where I summarize what we did in class, though it's the same Zoom link throughout the entire semester. So you save it once, you'll always have it. Yeah, so the undergrad TA is Caitlin. She is very smart and a very good student. If you have any questions about studying or the class in general, please reach out to her. You won't really ever have to study for the lab portion, but if you ever need any hints about studying or anything about this class, go to her. She's had it. She'll be a great resource for that. I should mention though, I hold a lot of office hours and I'll typically answer emails almost right away if I have my phone out or I'm at my computer. Please don't email me Wednesday night about an assignment that's due the next day. I won't be able to answer them. So yeah, so I'm available a lot, but please don't email me Wednesday night. All right, so let's jump into today's topics. We're just going to briefly go over some expectations and policies, just some boilerplate stuff that's true for almost any class, but there's some specific stuff for this lab. And we're going to briefly go over the research project, which is kind of the main theme or the main thing for this class is that research project, developing an experiment, and then also writing a paper. Then we're going to have an activity at the very end about writing an AP style paper where we're going to present some sentences, and I just want you guys to tell me what's wrong with them. I should mention if you have any questions or you would like to participate, use the raise hand feature just because there's so many of us. Or if you have a question, you can type it in the chat or use the raise hand feature. If I don't see it right away, typically if I see it, I'll stop because I have multiple monitors. It might pop up on another monitor. Caitlin will see it and either answer it if it's in a chat or just interrupt me and say, oh, hey, someone raised their hand or someone has a question. So if you have any questions, use the raise hand feature or type it in the chat. Are there any questions so far about myself, lab office hours, how to reach me? You can use my email or you can go through eCampus. It doesn't matter. All right, very briefly, just some expectations. Know what's in your syllabus, including deadlines. There's points taken off if things are submitted late, just like any other class. Be engaged during class time. Participation is a component of the grade, which is a little bit different than last semester if you had me or Jamie for 203. So there is a spot for participation. Also within your own groups, you'll be rating each other, about who is not pulling the weight. So then grades will reflect that. Contact me with questions. I can't help if you don't ask. I'm available. I'm even available on Saturdays, though that sometimes changes because I know some people can't, meet during the week or don't want to meet during the week. I am available Saturdays. Not this Saturday though. We have interview weekend for the PhD program here, and I have 17 interviews I got to do, so that's not going to be fun. Yeah, complete assigned tasks to the best of your ability, like any class. Follow the instructions. I know if you've had Dr. Tenenholz for 203, some of the assignments were pretty lengthy. You see the assignment and it's like 10 pages long. Read the instructions. Read and follow the instructions. There's a lot. She puts a lot of good instructions in there, and people missed a lot of points for just not seeing things in the instructions. And she really lays out what you need to do in those instructions. So please follow them. What you should expect to me: fair and timely grading. I definitely will aim to have grades back by the next class period. So if you turn it in on Thursday, I'll have it to you by next Thursday. I typically try to get it in earlier. Some assignments are just a little bit different depending on what my class and life schedule is like, but I should try and get them back by the end of the weekend, but if not, definitely by the next class period. Effective feedback, the way I do feedback is you'll be submitting Word documents for most, if not all of your assignments, and I just leave either track changes through Word or I leave comments on Word. Yeah, and I try to spend a lot of time on it. For your drafts, I'll spend all weekend, providing feedback for it. Yeah, so I try to provide effective feedback. There's a lot of opportunities for help outside of class. I hold a lot of office hours and an enjoyable learning environment. It's like 204 lab. It's not the most thrilling of psychology class that you'll ever take, and we're over Zoom, so it's a double whammy. So we'll try to make it interesting and enjoyable. So some basic course policies. Like I said, participation is required. It is a component of your grade now. And you do this, engage in class discussions, participate in your group, and meet with me outside of class. There is a component where you will have to meet with me either as a group or an individual to go over your data, but we'll get to that in a few weeks. If you have to miss multiple lab sessions, more than one because of COVID or some other illness, please let me know so that way we can work with you and have it not affect your grade. Attendance will be taken. Will be taken within the first 5 minutes of class and the last 5 minutes. So please don't leave early until I say you can leave. And we won't be having lecture until the end of class. A lot of times we'll have like maybe half hour of work time, and I'll say, oh, hey, you can leave, 15, 20 minutes early if your group decides that you want to leave. Email and eCampus, like anything, check it every day. All assignments and materials are going to be posted on eCampus. I don't do posted announcements on eCampus. I know Dr. Tenenholz does them, but I don't do them. But I will send out several emails. Typically, I try to only send out one email a week. It will be on Thursdays right after this class where I kind of give a summary of what we talked about and any important information that I want to restate or I think you should know. It'll also have my office hours for the next week as well. And then, of course, academic integrity, don't plagiarize. We have a program. We don't even have to really read your paper. It just tells us, and it tells us exactly where it came from or if it matches up. So please don't do that. I'd rather, if you are having problems with how to put in your own words, stop by my office hours. I'd rather sit there for an hour and help you write than have to write someone up for plagiarism. Yeah, so are there any questions so far about course policies, expectations, what I expect of you, what you should expect of me? Pretty standard stuff for a psych class. And this is briefly just what the grade component of the lab is made up of. We have 13, I believe it's 13 lab assignments. Most of these are individual. However, there are some group ones like assignment number 1, which we'll get into later today. Of course, the main theme of this class is developing and implementing and analyzing data from an experimental research design. So you'll have a research paper like in 203, instead of correlation, it'll be experimental. You have a group presentation. Lab participation makes up part of that grade. So it's a total of 400 points out of 875. So don't slack off just because it's a lab. It is a pretty big component of your grade. More details can be found on the syllabus. I'm not going to go into each assignment and what makes it up. Most of the assignments are due on prior to class the next week. However, some will be due like at the end of the day, just so it allows me more time to grade. All right. So we'll focus more on this research project in the coming weeks. I don't know if Dr. Tenenholtz talked about it this week in detail, but I'm just going to very, very briefly go over it, but don't worry, we'll focus more on it in the upcoming weeks. So in a group, you're going to develop, implement, and design your own experimental design. Last semester, you guys, well, when I say last semester, in 203, you designed and did research on a correlational design. Can someone tell me what the difference is between a correlational design and an experimental design? Just use the raise hand feature on Zoom and I'll call on someone. Oh, Skylar?
Correlational examines the relationship between two variables, but experimental can explain if it causes it or not, and the independent variable is manipulated.
Perfect. So last semester, in 203, I need to stop saying last semester because some people didn't take it last semester. In 203, you looked at correlations, which just looked at the relationship between two variables. Meanwhile, experimental, you manipulate your IV to show that it causes changes in your dependent variable. I want to pull up this website because I think it's really interesting to show why in 203, a lot of people would say, oh, my independent variable affects my dependent variable, or this variable, changes this variable. And that's just not, scientifically correct. And here's why. Here is a website that just looks at random correlations between a bunch of different variables. So can everyone see this website I just pulled up? Cool. So let's look at the correlation between, and remember, correlation can be done on any two variables. It doesn't matter what the variables are. So let's look at the films Nicolas Cage appeared in that year. So I guess how many films he appeared in that year, and the number of people who drowned by falling into a pool. We can see that the R value, so if you remember whenever you did it in SPSS, you got a couple different values whenever you ran a correlation. You got the P value, which if you remember, P less than 0.05 is significant. But it also gave you that correlation value, that R value. So we can see the R value is 0.666. So it is significant. And so we can see that there's a significant relationship between how many films Nicolas Cage appeared in and how many people drowned by falling into a pool. We obviously, would not want to say, oh, Nicolas Cage causes deaths. That's kind of the same logic applying to, using causal language in correlational designs. Let's look at another one. And there's a whole bunch of just funny. Okay, right here. So the per capita consumption of mozzarella cheese and civil engineering doctorates award. It's an R value of 0.96. It's really, really strong. If you saw that in your own research, I'd be amazed. You just don't find correlations like that. So this is a really strong correlation. And obviously we can't say that mozzarella cheese is, causes, what is this? It's civil engineering doctorates awarded. So we got to be really careful with our language. Remember, we can do a correlation on any two variables. All we're saying is how they're related. Meanwhile, when we do an experiment, when we're manipulating things, we can then say, hey, this causes change in something else. So in your group, you're going to propose a research topic. This is very similar to 203. You're going to propose a research topic, do the background research on it. You're going to develop and actually implement your experimental design. So you're going to be collecting data from people that you know. It doesn't have to be in person. We're going to be able to design stuff that can be collected online. You're going to collect and analyze this data. And of course, you're going to write it up, discuss interpretations, limitations, and then finally present your project to the class. Individually, you're going to be responsible for completing the homework assignments. Like I said, there's going to be a few that are group, but most of them are going to be individual. And then obviously your paper is an individual effort as well. Are there any questions so far about this research project or the difference between a correlation and an experiment? Cool. Let's just briefly go into some expectations. These are kind of more or less do's and don'ts of the research project. Don't do a project or a design just because you think it's going to be easy. Do something you're actually interested in. You really don't want to be stuck with doing a project and doing research on variables for stuff that you're not interested in. It's going to make your life incredibly boring and annoying. So try to find something as a group that you're interested in. That being said, though, make sure that you do use background research to help you come up with a design. Some people last semester, they had these ideas, but there's just nothing out there to support it. And, writing an introduction, writing a whole couple pages of an introduction is kind of hard. So make sure you do some background research to make sure what you're actually thinking about doing is possible. And I'll help you, I'll help you with that. Obviously, just incorporate good research methodology on doing experiments, which we'll talk about throughout the semester. Some more do's and don'ts. Don't waste time during lab sessions. Actually have, whenever we go into breakout rooms, have it be, beneficial, make sure it's useful. There's obviously, like I said before, there's a component of your grade that is, how well you participate or how well your group members think you participate. Don't let your group down. Not much more to be said about these expectations. Just be a good, group member. Cool. So that kind of sums up very, very briefly this semester. We'll obviously get into more things in a lot more detail in the coming weeks. I just wanted to briefly touch on it. But let's shift gears a little bit. So next up, we're going to have a bunch of slides that have a sentence on them, a sentence or two. And there's a problem with the sentence. So last semester, once again, in 203, we really focused on APA, right? We talked about what makes up specific paragraphs. We talked about what content should be in the introduction, what content should be in the results. But this semester, we're really going to try to focus on scientific writing, because there's a lot more that makes up scientific writing than just your standard APA format or how to write a APA paper. So, this is one workshop we're going to do, but we're going to try and focus on that throughout the semester. So your job is, I'm going to read the sentence out loud. Just use the raise hand feature. Someone tell me what the problem is with the sentence. Don't worry if you don't get it right. Some of them are a little bit difficult that I would be very surprised if people got it. I'm hoping someone gets it for some of these, but let's jump into it. So can someone tell me what the problem is with this sentence? The participant's average heart rate was 64. Emma.
I said that, or is it supposed to be 64 beats per minute? Like it's supposed to have a unit after it?
Good job. So you should always include the unit of measurement when you're talking about something. It could be, well, we could probably guess that this person was referring to beats per minute. It could be something else. Maybe, I don't know, it could be something else. So always include the unit of measurements, beats per minute, years, inches, pounds. You will have to do this, or this will play a part, when you're talking about, like, let's say age, whenever you're reporting your results. The average age of the participant was 16. Well, was it 16 months we all were, where it was 18, or what would be the average age here? Probably 20 for this class. So 20. Was it 20 months? Obviously, we're doing it with college students, so we could probably guess it was 20 years. But I'm in developmental, so we could look at 20-month-year-olds, right? So we should always have this unit of measurement so the reader can understand. Next up, study results prove that chronic stress causes migraine headaches. So there's actually two problems with this sentence. Can someone tell me one, or if they know both, tell me both? Kylie?
It says causes.
And what's the problem with causes?
Well, I just thought you said to not use like causal language and things like that, unless you have like a lot of research to back it up.
Okay, yeah, good job. So causes is a problem, and we'll get more into it, but can someone tell me what they think another problem is? Natalie.
I keep looking at the word like prove, like I don't know what the study like is that it could prove that chronic stress causes migraine headaches, because you can't really say that something proves something.
Good job. Yeah, we should never say that a study proves something. No one study ever proves anything. Instead, we should say study results suggest. Whenever you're talking about prior research, you could say, researchers suggest that X is related to Y. You never want to say proves whenever you're in scientific writing. Next up, yeah, with the, what is it? It was causes, right? Yeah, causes. So causal language should be exclusive to experimental designs. And you really have to look at your variables and look at the research that you're reading to see if it was an experimental design. So let's look at our two variables here. We have chronic stress and migraine headaches. So obviously they're saying that the IV is chronic stress and the DV is migraine headaches. They're saying that chronic stress causes migraine headaches. So can someone design an experimental design with chronic stress and migraine headaches? So you have to manipulate chronic stress. And remember, chronic stress is lifelong stress. So can anyone think of a way to do this experiment? Brianna, do you have a way? Do you think you have a way? Or was that just from a previous question?
I was thinking, like, is there a way that you could do a study like this without like an ethical concern of like giving participants chronic stress?
Yep, it was a trick question. You can't do this ethically. So the only way that I could think of doing this, and once again, it's not ethical, but is you have 100 babies and you take 50 of them and you put them in absolutely horrible conditions from birth. You put them in poverty, you give them abusive parents, malnourishment. And you do that for the first 18 years of their life, and you see, how many migraine headaches they get. Let's just say that's the outcome, number of migraine headaches. Then you take another 50 babies and you put them in perfect conditions. You good education, loving parents, lots of food. So, I mean, obviously that's completely unethical, right? You can't do that, and I hope no one has ever done that or ever would think to do that. So, yeah, so we can't use the word causes here. We have to, just is related to, increases frequency of, influences. So we got to be careful with what words we use. Next up, the study chose subjects who were at least 18 years of age. This is a difficult one. Emma?
Well, I don't really know what the problem is, but saying that the study chose subjects, it doesn't really seem like can't you like not choose subjects? Isn't it supposed to be like random assignment or something?
Oh yeah. So I see where you're coming from, and I like where you're coming at from that. But just imagine that yes, we do. Participants, they have to give a consent or an assent. But just imagine that you need to choose what kind of participants do you want? Well, we're going to be interested in maybe college students, right? So we're going to choose college students who are at WVU, and then we can target those participants using, some type of convenience sampling. So you can choose subjects, or maybe a better way to say it, you could choose potential subjects. Skylar, do you have an idea?
I mean, I feel like you should say the participants of the study were like 18 years old.
So that's not the problem, but I do agree with you. I think better writing would, you wouldn't really say it like this, but yes, I do agree. It was a better way to say where, participants were at least 18 years of age, or, convenience sampling was targeted at participants who were at least 18 years of age. So this one's a little bit difficult, but you never want to say, it's called anthropomorphizing, or you're attributing human characteristics to animals or inanimate objects like a study. You never want to, the study didn't do anything, right? The researchers did it. So, just be careful whenever you're reporting on stuff. I last semester, a couple people fell into this whenever you were writing about the introduction, or you were writing in the introduction about previous research, where you say, the study did this. No, the researchers actually did it. So just be careful. Here's a couple more examples. So the article researched the idea. No, researchers researched the idea. This one's more, for the behavioralist, the rats believed that the tone signaled food. We can't say the rats believed anything. What we should say rather is, I don't know, the rats associated that the tone signal, or associated that tone equals food. So just never try to anthropomorphize inanimate or non-human objects. Here's a little tricky one. Results revealed an insignificant difference between the two treatment groups. I'm going to give a hint. I'm going to say think statistics and what we talked about in 203. Julia?
Is it something about saying instead of difference, like you should say correlation or something like that?
No, because a difference, I see where you're coming from, but a difference could be, think about a t-test, where you're looking at the difference between, if there's a difference between two groups. So it could be a t-test. Meredith?
Should you say like not statistically significant instead of like insignificant, or just reword it?
Good job. So I'm going to go back to the original sentence. So yeah, the problem is with this insignificant portion. Insignificant and not significant are not the same thing. So insignificant literally means just unimportant, or not worth anything. However, non-significant findings can be important. So I submitted a fellowship which is basically a grant to Facebook to do some research for them. And we're interested in seeing if like Instagram use can cause, let's say Instagram use can cause depression, right? That's what we're going to be researching. Well, if you're Facebook, you kind of would want there to be a non-significant relationship, right? You would want the correlation between increased Instagram use and increased depression. You'd want there to be no relationship if you're Facebook, and if you're a normal person, right? You don't want depression to increase. But so a non-significant finding does not mean it's not important. So whenever you're talking about non-significant findings, you always want to use words like non-significant or not significant. Here's another common one that we see. Don't use like qualifying words like pretty or very. So whenever you're talking about significance. So the t-test results were pretty significant. No, they're either significant or they're not significant. There's no, very significant. It's either significant or not significant. Likewise with the next one, when you're talking about p-values, it's just significant. So don't use these qualifying words like very or a lot. This does change though if you're talking about effect sizes, right? If you could have large effect sizes and small effect sizes, but whenever we're talking about significance, it's either significant or not significant. Are there any questions so far about what we've talked about with significant, or how to say something's not significant, anthropomorphizing, units of measurement? All right, I'm not seeing any. Next up, this one's a little difficult too. The depressed participants appeared to be mostly women. Natalie.
Wouldn't you say instead of like appeared, like maybe talk about like the mode, like it was like women, like was the mode, instead of just saying like, I don't know, appeared just seems off to me.
I agree. I would phrase this sentence differently because of that as well. You definitely would want to have some kind of statistics in there to show that it was mostly women. However, that's not the only problem with this. Manar?
Saying mostly women doesn't give us a percentage. Like it could be 90%, 80%. We just don't know.
True. Once again, yep, we would want to have some type of statistics there. The hint I'm going to give for what another problem in here is think people first language. Katie? If you're saying anything, you're still muted, Katie.
Sorry. Should it be like among the participants, women were shown to have higher levels of depression?
Yeah. So we want to avoid labeling people. So we don't want to say depressed participants. We want to say participants with depression. This is really nuanced, but it is important that we don't label people, right? For example, yeah, so like I said, you would want to say participants with depression, not the depressed participants. And here are just two ways to say it. I included one with the percentages because I do personally agree that there definitely should be percentages in there. So a better way to say it are the participants with clinical diagnosis of depression appeared to be mostly women, 82%. Or you could say the participants who scored high on the depression scale appeared to be mostly women. But I would definitely have statistics in there to back that up, some type of percentage. All right, I think we have two more, maybe two or three more. This one is also very nuanced. The task administered was the ANT, the Attention Network Task. This task has been used in previous studies examining the effects of caffeine on attention. And someone tell me what the problem is with that. Skylar.
You have to mention like what studies that have previously used that, or at least like give an example.
Yep, you guys are finding all these problems that aren't the main problem for this. Yes, you of course you definitely would need some type of citations to say, hey, these previous studies, but what are the previous studies? I'll say the problem is in the first sentence. Maddie.
It's not really telling us what task they were doing, just says the task administrated. Oh, never mind, it does.
Yeah, I think they should be more specific with the attention. I see where you're coming at, but they definitely, I think, should be more specific with the attention network task. I'm not entirely sure what that task is. I think there's more involved in it. Brianna.
Is it that it should say attention network task and then have ANT in parentheses?
Good job. So this is really nuanced. Abbreviation should always come after whatever you're spelling out. Like, yeah, so it should be the attention network task in parentheses ANT. Additionally, you don't need to include abbreviations if you're not going to use that abbreviation later on. So let's say you bring it up in your your methods. I know last semester people brought up like a specific scale. I forget what the scale was, but they used abbreviation for the scale. And then never use that abbreviation throughout the rest of their paper. Only include abbreviations if you're actually going to use it. It makes sense, if you're going to write the attention network task a lot in the introduction, say it the first time and then put the abbreviation in parentheses afterwards. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm seeing some nodding heads. That's why I like cameras, because I can see some nodding heads. All right, I think it's the last one. Cool. The children absolutely hated the program implemented at their school. Can someone tell me what the problem is for that? See, I'm trying to see if anyone else wants to participate and get their participation points in. Is it Keely? Kaylee?
Yeah, you said it right.
Okay, cool.
Thank you. I don't know if this is it, but I feel like absolutely hated is like a strong word. Like I don't know how to describe it, but I feel like absolutely hated shouldn't be said like that.
What would you say instead?
I'm honestly not sure how.
All right, so this is the biggest distinction between, I think, creative writing and scientific writing. So you are right, absolutely hated. We don't want to see it in scientific writing. We could just report on it. You don't need to have the emotions. You don't need to place the emotional side of things. So you can just say the children reported a dislike of the program implemented at their school. You don't have to get crazy with it. This is one of the reasons why I like scientific writing, because you can just say what you want to say. You don't have to fluff it up and make it more exciting. Nope, you can just report it. So now, traditionally, I would definitely say you need some type of numbers here, right? If you're going to say the children reported a dislike, well, tell us, what the average rating was. Was it a 1 out of 5? Where 5 means they really like their school, but that's neither here nor there. You just don't need to dramatize or place emphasis on emotion. I think we have a couple more examples. Yeah. So the authors were really concerned about the sampling bias, or it is so very important that future studies consider the age range of the sample. We don't need it. You can, if you take out these words, the sentence is the exact same. You don't need these emotions. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's it. Does anyone have any questions or would like to go back to any of the examples because something didn't make sense, or you'd like me to clarify it even more? Skylar.
Is this due next Thursday?
Oh, I'll get into this assignment.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't see anyone that has any questions for about what we just talked about. So yeah. So let's get into the first assignment. So this is going to be a group assignment. It's not going to be your research groups. I'm just going to randomly assign you into groups of, I think, 3 or 4. We'll see. But yes, this is due next Thursday prior to class. You can find this on eCampus. I'd suggest you go to eCampus in a minute or two after I'm done explaining it, so you can download it because you're going to have a chance to work on it for the remainder of the class. But yeah, so this is going to be all about finding errors in writing. We're going to give you a shortened, abridged version of a student paper, and it is just riddled with errors. I think there's 74 errors throughout it. And what you need to guys do as a group is to just find, identify, and tell me what's wrong with the paper. We're going to do this by downloading a Word document and leaving comments on it. So I'm going to show you what that means. And I believe there's more example, there's a better description on the actual assignment. Let me pull up this Word document. Okay. So can everyone see this Word document? Cool. So this is what it's going to look like. You're going to have this student paper, and there's going to be problems throughout it. Now, there's only one problem with this paper right here, and we should know that whenever you're doing an in-text citation, you should use the ampersand sign. You don't say and, we use the ampersand sign. So if this was the homework assignment, what I want you to do is to leave a comment on it. So the way to do that in Word is you can double click it, highlight it in some way, right click or whatever I don't know how Mac, even though I have a Mac, I don't know how they say right click, but however you do the cut, copy, paste, you can leave a new comment. And I just want you to say, should use, where's the ampersand? There it is. Should use and that would be, correct for this. You'd get a point for this. There's more ways to leave comments. Let me delete that comment. You can highlight it, go up to review in Word and, do new comment. So there's multiple ways to do it, but this is what we want to see. If you guys want to work on Google Docs, I know there's a way to do it on Google Docs. Not 100% sure because I never use it, but I know there is a way to do it. However, if you do use Google Docs, make sure you download the file as a .docx. That's just a Word document. It's whatever in the Google Doc file, like whenever you file save as, pretty sure you can save as a .docx. Or you might have to export it. I don't know. There's a way to do it on Google Docs. Make sure it's a .docx so I can see your comments. Does anyone have any questions about how to leave a comment, the steps to it, why you're doing it on Word? Yeah, so once again, just highlight it, new comment, and tell me what the problem is. Okay, so there are 74 errors on this paper that you can find on eCampus. You only have to get 48 out of the 74 to get 100%. So, don't feel that you need to find all 74. However, the group that finds the most errors will get an extra 3 points. So it's a great way to get, already starting off with over 100% in lab by finding the most. Yeah, so some of the errors that are going to be on it, you can see there's going to be citation and reference issues, scientific writing issues like we've talked about, missing information. Don't worry about missing information in the introduction. We took a bunch of stuff out because we wanted to make the paper shorter. On the actual assignment, it breaks down like how many errors of each are in each paragraph or section. So make sure you're looking at that assignment. Like I said, make sure you're following the instructions. Yeah, so I'm going to put you in the breakout, just randomized into groups so that you can work on this assignment. Only one person has to upload it to eCampus by next Thursday, though make sure all of your names are on it. Otherwise, you won't get credit for it. Yeah, so does anyone have any questions about assignment number 1? You're just finding the errors and making sure you leave a comment about what the problem is. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. I am going to back up for a second, and this is going back to the research project. In 203, we randomly assigned groups. We're going to do things a little bit different this semester. So if anyone has someone else they want to work with, maybe you worked with them last semester and you guys worked well, or maybe you're friends, please let me know and I'll try to get you into groups. I think we're looking at groups of 3 and 4, probably more 4 than 3. So if there's someone that you want to work with, please let me know and I'll definitely try to get you into a group together. If not, perfectly fine. But if you do have someone, please email me and tag them in the email. Be like, I want to work with so-and-so, and make sure that they're CC'd in the email. Does that make sense? And once again, if you don't have someone you work with, if you don't know anyone, perfectly fine. We'll put you in a group. No big deal. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and assign breakout rooms. Let's do 3 to 4 participants per room. Okay, cool. Yeah, so once I assign breakout room, you can go out into the breakout rooms, talk about how you want to divvy up the assignment. Make sure you're looking at the actual assignment from eCampus. And I'm going to jump in and out of breakout rooms just to see if anyone has any extra questions. We're done this class at 3:45. So at 3:30 as a group, if you decide that you want to leave, you can leave at 3:30. But please don't leave before then. So sign automatically. Caitlin, I need to pull